So, let's dive into a really powerful idea from a piece by Jennifer Crystal. The title of this explainer says it all, and it's a big one. Life isn't actually about intelligence, it's about coordination. And trust me, this one idea, it might just change how you look at, well, almost everything. And this quote from the source just nails it. Intelligence alone is not what keeps things alive. I mean, that really goes against a core belief for a lot of us, right? We're so often told that being smarter, faster, more capable, that's the key to survival. So if intelligence isn't the whole story, what have we been missing? Well, to really get this, we have to look at the story we're told all the time. Our culture is just obsessed with individual brilliance. We're always chasing after smarter systems and trying to make faster and faster decisions. It's like this never-ending race for more power, more speed. But here's the thing. All that focus on speed and smarts, it creates what the source calls the intelligence illusion. So we're going to spend the next few minutes exploring why this way of thinking might be distracting us from what really truly matters for long-term health and survival. And this is where we get to the heart of the matter. The common belief is that success is all about how good the individual pieces are on their own. But the source points to a deeper truth. The real principle is whether all those parts can actually stay in relationship, whether they can stay aligned over time. It's a huge shift, right? From looking at the parts to looking at the connections between them. Okay, so if life isn't just a race to be the smartest, then what is it? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple, but it's profound. Life just isn't a solo act. At its core, it's a team sport. So how does something as complex as, well, us even happen? It's basically a three-step process. First, you have countless tiny little actions all responding to one another. Then, cells start to specialize, they communicate, and, this part is absolutely crucial, they limit themselves for the good of the whole. And it's only when that happens that something bigger, something more complex can hold together. And this is such a critical point. We're always told that growth is about winning, about dominating. But in real living systems, true sustainable growth actually comes from participation and, get this, restraint. It's about knowing when to act, sure, but it's also about knowing when to hold back so the entire system can thrive. You know, this pattern isn't just for cells and biology. It's us. It defines what it means to be human. Things like language, culture, shared meaning, they only exist because we coordinate with each other. Heck, even your own thinking isn't one single thing. It's this whole dance happening inside your head between attention, memory, and emotion. It's your own internal ecosystem that has to stay aligned. And this is where it hits home, right? When those internal parts, your thoughts, your feelings, where you put your attention, when they're out of sync, everything feels heavier than it should. We've all had that feeling, that mental fog where everything just feels hard. Well, that's what this is talking about. That's the feeling of your own internal system being out of whack. And that feeling, that idea of friction and being out of alignment, it leads us to a totally new way of thinking about a word we use all the time. So let's talk about the real meaning of health. But why do we mess this up so often? Why do we always think output equals health? You see it at the gym, at work, in the economy. The simple answer? Probably because output is just way easier to count. But if you look deeper, true health, real health, it's not about how much you can produce. It's about a system's ability to respond, to be flexible. It's about being able to direct energy where it's actually needed, instead of wasting all that energy just fighting itself. Really, health is resilience. So what happens when we forget all this and just focus on the numbers? Well, there's a price to pay. Let's look at what the source calls the hidden cost of friction. Here's a perfect example. We can push ourselves to keep going, right? Hitting our goals, looking strong, all while underneath the surface, things are starting to break down. The output, it's like a mask for what's really happening inside. And this is so true for our jobs. You see a company hitting all its quarterly targets, everything looks great on the spreadsheet, but the people, they're completely exhausted. The system seems healthy from the outside, but it's eating itself from the inside out. And you can zoom this idea out even further. A whole society can look incredibly busy and productive on paper, while the very trust and connection that holds it all together is quietly, slowly falling apart. At the end of the day, it's all about wasted energy. All the energy that a system, your body, your team, your country, should be using to adapt and grow is instead being burned just to compensate for its own breakdown. It's just treading water. So That brings us to the big question, maybe the most important one. It forces us to rethink not just what we create, but how we create it. It's all about how we hold it together. And this is the challenge for you. I want you to think about the systems in your own life, the tools you use, your job, your daily habits, your relationships, and ask yourself this one critical question. Does this system just push me to produce more? Or does it actually help me stay whole, aligned, and intact as I move through this changing world? This whole perspective really boils down to two simple but kind of radical truths. First, life isn't asking for your output. And second, health doesn't come from speed. So if it's not about output and it's not about speed, then what is it? What sustains us? It's the ability to hold together while moving forward. It's about maintaining that coherence, that integrity, even when things get tough. It's dynamic stability. And the suggestion here is that if we can get that alignment right in ourselves, in our teams, in our communities, then everything else just follows. A simple but pretty profound idea to end on.